is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is the Hyperspace
Podcasting in the 25th century.
This is the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th century. I'm Matt.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Mike.
Today, we are going to talk about one of the 20th and 21st century's biggest comic superhero, the web-slinger himself.
Spider-Man.
Thundar the Barbarian.
Thundar the Barbarian.
I can't believe they finally adapted that into a movie.
But, guys, speaking of movies, it's funny. I was re-listening to episode 3.
Okay.
And it made me laugh. Specifically, the Conan the Barbarian segment that I was talking about with his sword. Jared, do you know that Mike has never seen Conan the Barbarian?
I do know that. Yes, we've
Mike,
talked about that.
It's true. It's all true. I'll tell you my exposure to Conan the Barbarian. When I grew up, we lived in a small 2-bedroom house.
Yes.
And my bedroom, the part where I rested my gentle little head.
The bed?
Was facing out, it was right next to the door, and I could look out into the living room.
Yes.
And my parents were watching TV, and sometimes they fell asleep, and the TV was left going.
Yes.
And I don't know, was it super early in the morning or real late at night? I looked through the doorway, and Conan the Barbarian started. And I saw the opening scene where they come into his village when he's a kid. And they cut his mother's head off, and you see it roll to the in front of him, hit the ground.
James Earl Jones is staring at him.
I thought, okay, and then I went to sleep. I was like,
that's it. That's your exposure.
That's all I ever saw. That is all I've ever seen from the actual film. And of course, I saw Conan the Destroyer because HBO ran it ad nauseum when they.
That is terrible.
I remember watching it even as a middle schooler. I was like, man, this movie is not good.
And the Barbarian versus Destroyer is night and day in terms of how how good the story is. We are going to do an episode at some point where we're going to make Mike go and watch Conan, and then we're going to talk to him about Conan the Barbarian.
I'll be like Alex from Clockwork Orange.
Pin the eyes open.
With your eyes pinned open.
Is it on any streamers? Is anyone streaming that? I don't recall seeing it.
I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but I'm sure we can make a copy available to you.
It's stuff like this that you're getting straight from the 25th century, guys. And we appreciate all the listeners that have subscribed and listened and downloaded our podcast.
When I took a walk today in the 25th century, and I asked somebody, I was like, hey guys, we talked about Conan last week. Do you guys know what Conan is?
What was their answer?
Well, they were dressed in the quasi-futuristic silver clothing. They looked at me and they're like, I don't know about what Conan is. Well, that's why we're here.
Did they say, what is a Conan?
Yeah, exactly like that. You probably saw him. You probably saw him later in the day, those same people.
It's hard to tell because they all look alike. Because after the Great Calamity, the gene pool bottlenecked. And now, everyone looks almost completely alike.
Yes, they do. They look kind of like Sam. They look like Sam Rockwell in Gentlemen Broncos.
And that's what the world looks like, actually.
That's the 25th century. That's what it is.
Go see Gentlemen Broncos if you've never seen it.
Yeah, Gentlemen Broncos is a...
It's not for everybody. It's not.
But it's indescribable.
It's for the right people.
Correct. I think for the people who listen to this podcast, it's the right movie. It'll change your life.
And we'll talk about that one day on a future show.
When we do a Sam Rockwell highlight, it's going to be a big, big, big piece of it.
So today on the podcast, we're going to do something never before attempted on a podcast, a movie review. That movie, Spider-Man, Far From Home. What do you think about that, Mike?
I think it's amazing.
Before we get to that review, we've got some news from a galaxy far, far away. right, today on News from the Interwebs. Recently we got a first look, at a brand new stormtrooper from Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. It's a trooper that they're calling a Sith stormtrooper, painted entirely red. And I gotta tell you guys, I feel it's a little lazy. Thoughts?
Yeah, it really wasn't much of a stretch, was it?
I don't think so. I mean, I see what they're going for. You have the Imperial guards in the original trilogy and the guards from the last movie, Snoke's guys.
Right.
And they're always red. But, just painting a stormtrooper red.
Well, there are some modifications to the armor and the helmet. There's some throwbacks to the clone troopers in there. There's a little more angular protrusions.
Yeah, it's got the T-visor.
Yeah, the T-visor's back. The chest plate is much more paneled like the clone troopers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got some cool features. My question is, does the new red Sith stormtrooper replace the entire army of current stormtroopers, or are they more of an elite unit replacing the Imperial guards that are just there to guard, for example, Kylo Ren as...
Well, the question is, why are they called Sith when Kylo Ren does not really identify himself as a Sith?
Are they officially called Sith troopers, or are they just being referred to for merchandising as Sith troopers?
No, I think, they don't really call stormtroopers anything in the films.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Troopers. But that's the official name from Lucasfilm.
I mean, I think people are making too big of a deal of this. My own thoughts are that we're going to see the Red Trooper in a small capacity, probably as an elite personal guard to Kylo Ren. And I don't think we're going to see the entire battlefield changed into a crimson, a trooper onslaught. I think you're still going to have your white armored troopers like you always have, but you're going to have a much more elite unit coming in that probably is going to be with Kylo. That's my thought. That's my guess.
Mike, what were you going to say?
I was saying, I'm looking at the figure and his packaging with his weapons.
You looking at the figure's package?
And yeah, it's very impressive. The weapons are all red and black, which remind me of my Black & Decker leaf blower and weed whacker. So maybe that's what he does, is he actually works around and does the trim and cleans off the sidewalk.
That could be
the First Order base.
I mean, infrastructure is important. I mean, you got to keep it clean.
Someone has to do it.
Here's what I think. In Episode 9, they may not be with Kylo. There is going to be another Sith Lord in Episode 9. We know this already.
But that said, this isn't just a trooper that was created in a vacuum. There are direct evolutions from the First Order trooper to this.
Yes, I agree. It does share many traits of the First Order stormtrooper.
So in that regard, I would be surprised if it happened to be that other Heavy's personal guard, but you never.
Yeah, because who knows what Sidious has been up to? If he's just hanging out in the sunken Death Star, I mean,
Palpy taking it easy, getting some rays.
Yeah, he's like, ooh, I like that new stormtrooper armor. Please bring me some.
Bring me
some red spray paint.
Pina colada.
Well, we'll see, I guess. But my initial thoughts was, it seemed a little lazy. But as you said, on further inspection, there are marked differences in how he looks.
And I think we really have to just wait and see how they're using these troopers.
Of course.
Listen, if all the troopers are now red and they all have a Sith kind of affiliation, I'm going to have some questions, and they better give me some good answers. But
hey, remember, in the trailer, Kylo, when he body slams the dude, there's regular troopers in the background, white troopers.
Right, but jungle. That to me looked like more of a flashback sequence in the movie, but you never know. It could be.
I don't think they're going to ditch the white armor. I mean, that's a staple of the Star Wars movies.
And in fairness, there was a poster that leaked months ago that had these red troopers on it.
Oh, was it?
And yes. And this same poster has also correctly, people thought it was fan made at first, but it's been proven to be legit. And the white stormtroopers do appear on this poster. So
we're all up in the air. We all have to wait and see. But why don't you guys give a comment? What do you think is going to be the Red Trooper's role in this new movie coming up?
And that's news from the interwebs.
Rad Rob.
But now, how about something completely random?
Random access memory. All right, guys, so I got a random thought for you. Recently, very recently, HBO released a movie called Deadwood, the movie. It wrapped up the Deadwood television series, which aired on HBO from 2003 to 2006. It was canceled abruptly after 3 seasons and kind of left a lot of things like hanging out in the air, and nobody ever thought this movie would be made. But it was made, and it acted as a very satisfying conclusion to the story that was started so many years earlier in the television series. But my question for you guys is there a show or a movie where things ended on an obvious cliffhanger that they expected to be resolved, but there was no sequel or there was no next season?
Oh, I got you.
So you're just left hanging there with this story that's never been completed.
I'm going to take it right back to the home where Deadwood came from. I'm going to throw it right back at HBO. There were 2 shows. The Sopranos, to me, I thought should have had a movie made because the end was so bad, in my opinion. And I always thought that they were going to do a movie, actually, and it never happened. But another one on HBO, which a ton of people watched, but you never hear anybody talk about it, was Carnival. You ever watch Carnival? With Nick Stahl, he was in it?
No, my wife was quite a big fan of that show.
Man, I was a huge fan of that show. And I have to tell you, it ended on the huge cliffhanger. It was huge. And this disappeared. It was nothing.
Nothing happened.
Nothing. So yeah, in that sense, those 2 shows I can think of offhand. Another one was, believe it or not, Battlestar Galactica from the 70s.
Yeah.
To me as a kid, Battlestar Galactica ended, was it 13 episodes? And,
no, I think they had a little more than that.
I don't know. It wasn't many.
Well,
but the Hand of God was the last episode. I remember that one. But it was it. That was it. And don't get me wrong. That led to a lot of great stuff. A lot of great stuff 30 years later. And thank God they made it because that was a great show. But
some would argue they did in fact finish that show, Matt, with a little show called Galactica 1980.
It certainly did finish that show.
That show is an abomination in the eyes of God and man.
Listen,
it's horrific.
The 2 episodes of that pilot are celluloid gold.
Of what? Galactica 80?
If you've never seen that show, by the way, go on YouTube and watch Galactica 1980.
I am ashamed to admit I actually have that series on Blu-ray.
How many episodes was it?
It wasn't many. It came in the complete box set of the Galactica series. That's the only reason I own it. And I've never put it in my player.
It's so bad.
But, I get it because obviously Galactica 1980 is not where they were wanting to go.
No, you can't count that. So to me, as a kid, I'd 30 years after Battlestar. So to me, that's one of those kind of shows. Even though they made Battlestar Galactica later, which is a great show, the original was left out in space.
Yeah, that's true. And now, our good old friend Richard Hatch, he did write some novels, I believe.
Yes, he did.
He penned some novels about the further adventures of that original crew, but I never read them.
No, I never did either. The Hatchet Man tried so hard for years. I'm glad he actually made his cameos in the new show. It really...
Yeah, he did a great job
full circle
in that show.
The Hatchet Man, he was great.
So, Mike, what do you got for us?
This was a tough one. There were a lot of shows that were on that I liked, but I didn't get to watch because, they were on at the same time as the shows my parents watched. And
like Manimal.
We were back in the day of, one channel to watch on one TV.
Yes.
Not like, now obviously. The show that got canceled that I was really disappointed with was, of course, the series. And
oh, yes.
That was such a great show.
Mark Singer and his painted on Wranglers.
And his shirt was always unbuttoned.
But I loved V. That was like one of my first. That's like one of the first television series, like mini series and all that I really remember.
Well, the 2 mini series I think hold up. V and V the Final Battle. I think they both hold up. The TV show, And I didn't always get to watch it, but my uncle, he watched it, and he told me how it ended, and he told me about the cliffhanger. And even though I didn't see the episode until years later, when I found out it had been canceled, and I read the comic book at the time, so I was reading the comic, but I wasn't able to watch the show.
Refresh my memory. What was the cliffhanger for V?
The cliffhanger was that what did they call the main leader dude? He had a name, the supreme leader or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we'll go with that.
he shows up, and he basically calls a peace treaty with the humans, and he wants Elizabeth, the Star Child. So he takes her on his ship, and then Kyle sneaks on the ship. And then as the ship is leaving the dock, someone says to Diana, who's now a prisoner, like something like, "Oh, Diana, it looks like, you're done," or something like that. And she says, "Well, I left the Supreme Leader a surprise that he's sure to get a bang out of." And then that's how it ends. That's the last episode. And so there is no. But but the thing about V, if you've gone back, I don't know when's the last time you watched it.
I think I caught it maybe like 5-6 years ago on Sci-Fi.
You can actually, that show loses its budget so visually. Like, literally, they were killing off lead actors, like, out of nowhere. Like, someone walk on the street and get shot by a laser and disappear. Like Elijah, that was how he died. Ham and Chris, his sidekick.
Wasn't Michael Ironside?
Yeah,
in that movie?
and he left. He just one episode. At the end of the episode, he goes, "Okay, guys, I'm leaving," and he takes two other main characters with him, so they leave. And what else did it? And it's almost like you could almost watch them tearing the sets down while they were shooting.
Like, no, this ain't happening.
And like the last episode is really, really bad, and it has this scene where they end up fighting on the bridge, and the guy who came on the show, I can't remember the actor's name. He was Khan's second in command.
Oh yeah,
I know
you're
can't.
Talking about. Right.
He was on it as like Diana's henchman, and I'll never forget. There's this shot of them in the bridge fighting, and there's like some of them are standing on the consoles for some strange reason. It's almost like a dance party, but the guy. It's clearly his stunt man with this terrible blonde wig on, because he had that blonde hair that came down to almost to his shoulders. Yeah. It was just, you watch that show and it's just like you can watch it just fall apart. It's just falling apart before your very eyes. And by the time it ends, it's no surprise that they did not renew this show.
Yeah, I don't think I ever gave the series a chance. The two miniseries were really great. And if you watch them even now, aside from the effects, I think they hold up pretty well considering.
And the first episode of the TV series was really good because it picked up right where the final battle ended. And I thought it was.
I didn't see the show.
But also another thing they did to cut the budget is they lost their. Remember in the movies, they had the voices.
Of the visitors, they were modulated,
and they couldn't afford to do that, so they stopped.
So they're just like, they just sound normal now.
You see, that was the coolest thing about the visitors, though.
And that's how you could tell they were visitors.
Yeah, because they had the little.
But now they just sounded like people, and
V.
But at the time when you're a kid, you're like, my uncle told me about that, and I'm like, I really want to see how that's resolved. And they never.
And it didn't happen.
No.
There was a revival show,
a reboot.
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with the original series.
Yeah, that was another show actually that it was mediocre until the last few episodes, and the last it was canceled of season 2, and the last episode of season 2, the last episode had Mark Singer in it, and they'd already brought back I can't remember the actress that played Diana. I know
who you're talking about.
I should know, but anyway. She had been on the show, but anyway, Mark Singer came on the show, and you're like, oh, this is really good now, and it got canceled. So, I guess that's the curse of V. Anytime it has some kind of interesting idea, they're going to nix it.
It's kind of funny how much Mark Singer played a part of my childhood. I swear, every weekend Beastmaster was on.
Yeah, it was always on like USA or
it was
something.
Always
TBS.
On. It was always fair. It's like if it was like raining on Sunday, and you weren't doing anything, you turn on Beastmaster on something.
Yeah.
I must have watched that movie like 1,000 times.
So, okay.
Well, my choice is it's not something that affected me so much as a kid, but later on it really bothered me. Land of the Lost just doesn't have an ending. Like I think they might have tried for something had they gone another year or so, but they're still there as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
They're
Land
still
of the
there.
Lost.
You know, Holly is in deep middle age. Will, he's slightly older, and probably Uncle Jack has passed away by now, and I don't know, maybe
a mound of rocks.
Maybe Rick, maybe Rick made it back.
I don't know if they really deserved a movie or an ending, but I have to say, guys, that's one thing on this podcast we're gonna have to do a whole series on. We're gonna have to do a whole series on Land of the Lost.
I know. Yeah, and if
it's worth
if
it.
you don't want to hear about that, then I don't know what to tell you.
It's worth it. If you didn't grow up watching Land of the Lost, I feel sorry for you because it was great. It was awful, but it was great.
But don't expect an ending because there is none. It just stops.
Maybe
the
our
last
podcast
shot of the show
will have no ending as well.
The last shot of the show is young Will with his coconut guitar singing a song.
Shaka's just running around. He's got gray hair and a mange.
Oh, man. I think that's probably about enough random for now.
Spider-Man, where are you coming from, Spider-Man? Nobody knows who you are.
All right, today on the Hyperspace, we're going to be talking about the brand new film Spider-Man Far From Home, the latest in a long line of Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Released on July 2nd, 2019. We're going to be talking about it, and we're going to tell you right up front, there is going to be spoilers.
Here there be spoilers.
Red alert, red alert, red alert, red alert.
I have to say, I really took my time seeing the new Spider-Man movies because I was so burned out on Spider-Man to begin with, the standalone movies from the past. Mm-hmm. I really dragged my heels seeing them. And I tell you, I really regret it because they're some of the best movies that Marvel put out, I think. I think they're fantastic.
I think this new one is definitely right up there with one of the best Marvel movies.
I agree.
I saw Homecoming and I was kind of lukewarm to it. I mean, I liked it after I watched it on multiple viewings. I definitely warmed up to it more. But I think Far From Home, I mean, it's really great. It's got a great story. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of heart to it, and I just think they nailed it. It's
Far From Home was awesome. I thought it was great, and I agree with you on Homecoming. But you know what Homecoming did for me? Homecoming made me love Tom Holland in that role.
Oh, no, he's great.
And to see him in, of course, Far From Home solidified it. He is my favorite Spider-Man who's acted that part. Bar none, hands down. He's my favorite Spider-Man.
I think Tobey Maguire will always be my, Christopher Reeve for Spider-Man. But having said that, I think Tom Holland is just,
yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's great.
When the movie started, and they were playing Whitney Houston over the Marvel logo, it kind of made me feel sad because I'm looking at all those characters and they've used that logo for years. And a lot of those guys, their story is over.
Oh, I thought you were going to take it down a Whitney rabbit hole there, that you were feeling sad about Whitney being gone.
Oh, well, that too, of course. Whenever I hear that song, of course. But I was like, wow, there's Iron Man. He's gone. Captain America, Black Widow, they're not here anymore. And I thought, they may not be opening movies like this much longer. And then, of course, the sad music underneath it just underscored my feelings. But I thought it was brilliant the way they kind of segued into the high school news, and that's some tribute someone had made with, After Effects on their iPhone.
I have to say, speaking about the news segment, what a great way to get exposition in.
Yeah,
through a tool of the kids telling the news. I thought it was great. What a great device that was. I felt very caught up
in the basketball game when everybody disappeared.
The blip.
That was great. And then when they reappeared and everything was chaos.
I'm glad they
Which-
acknowledged that because, you know, when you saw the end game, you're kind of wondering because it happened off camera. And I like that they, you know, it kind of seemed like that. Maybe they were just kind of like, well, that happened and just kind of like scoot past it. And they didn't.
No, bravo to the student news. That was a big help for the movie.
My favorite was the pixelated picture of Vision. That they never could get a good close up picture of him.
And it was pixelated.
Yes.
I don't think I even caught that.
I gotta watch it again to see it.
Yeah, it's all like gray, you know, it's like real grainy. It's like they took a picture that was he's off in the distance and zoomed it in.
Yeah, zoomed it in and then used it. I think that's the only way they could have dealt with it because there's so many. I read an article yesterday. There are so many holes you could go down with the blip and its ramifications. People getting remarried, you know, people, just all kinds of things that could have happened. But this deals with it in a very funny, kind of breezy way that, you know, it works for the story. And they just say, okay, this happened, but now we're moving on.
I have to admit, I was still a little confused by the blip, but I just kind of rolled with it. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep going. But I mean, they did convey, the thing they did talk about was that some people came back and they're like 5 years younger than everyone else.
Their younger brothers, now their older brother.
Yeah, the one kid that was the Betty Brant's co-host. My little brother's older than me.
I know. And that whole segment, that news where they're looking at the wrong cameras, and it was just so crappily great. And I like Flash trying to drink on the airplane, and they're like, no, he's really just 16. And he's like, what are you talking about? Which, that's another thing. That would happen. Kids who are 16 would be 21, but anyway, yeah, exactly. But that was a good way to start things off, kind of acknowledging what we have just seen, you know, in theaters a couple of months ago.
Well, I did see, I saw today that Marvel is calling the snap when everyone disappeared and the blip when they came back.
So that's the official terminology.
Yeah, the snap is when they left, and the blip is when they came back.
So when we get our DK book of the Marvel universe,
it's gonna say
in the glossary, it'll be snap and blip.
Here's one thing I thought was funny is that Tony Stark is like almost a messianic figure in this movie. I mean, he's everywhere in different countries, huge billboards of him, paintings, but it was the Hulk who brought everybody back.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I mean, Tony Tony really single-handedly defeated Thanos, but
yeah, I think it was a group.
Well, Thanos
effort.
was about to do it again.
Yeah, you have to count it as a group effort, but Tony was the one who really bit the bullet on that one.
And do you think there was like a news special on that, like where they explain? Well, you see what happened was,
I just wonder if
was about to wipe out everybody.
I just wonder if like Smart Hulk is like really getting angry about all the press Tony's getting. He's like, "Hey guys, don't you know I brought you back? He just killed Thanos." Anyway, that's a completely ridiculous hole to go down. But
I didn't think about that. Yeah, it is actually the Hulk that.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it would just be funny to see his reaction because the new Hulk is, you know, he's kind of a goofball. I thought it was interesting when the movie started, Aunt May is doing fundraisers for displaced blip people and how she returned in her old apartment and people thought she was a ghost or the guy's mistress. And again, something that would have probably been funny to see.
And something you pointed out, Jared, is in the trailer, he's wearing his Civil
War? Normal Spidey
suit. But in the movie, he's in the
Iron Spider.
Iron Spider.
Yeah. Which I don't know why they
also, if you've noticed, the trailers has a bunch of footage that happens before he leaves, like where he's talking to the police and teasing them about doing all their work and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Which I thought that was a kind of a good line, though.
Yeah, but I can kind of see you didn't really need all that. I mean, you know, you need to get them going pretty quick.
Yeah, you got to get them out of the country
because there's a lot going on in that movie, and that's another reason I think it is so good is because there's that moment where everything falls together.
What I think that Marvel has become very good at is taking their character and their characters and really building up the depth of each of them and making the whole story rich about characters versus just having action sequences. Yeah. And I thought this is a really good example. This movie, they really hit it on the head where they took even the smaller minor characters, really got some great, one or two really great lines to build up their characters. But Tom Holland really had a lot of character building in this one. And it wasn't all Spider-Man. It was a lot of Peter Parker. And it was a lot of just insight to how he is as an adolescent and how he is as Spider-Man.
crush. We really started to follow the whole thing with him wanting to express his feelings to MJ. And normally that type of thing, who's drawn to, who cares about stuff like that? But in this movie, it was because he's trying to juggle being Spider-Man and trying to do this other thing, and you just
Mike. When I was watching the movie, I thought of you because I know how much you enjoy teen romance in your films. See Harry Potter. It's interesting to hear that you were kind of invested in it, and you were.
Well, it was fun. I mean, they did it in a fun way.
It was a relatable thing. Every guy was in that position,
of course,
at 16 years old. So,
and the way they used the kid who was older than everyone, and he become like good looking.
I know,
and
which was totally strange,
but it was so funny, and it was good.
The movie, it was funny. The whole thing when it starts, they're on the plane, and their whole plot to have him sit next to MJ that just completely goes south immediately.
Peter, you have a perfume allergy?
Yeah, that's no joke. Okay, hey, you said over here that teacher's pretty funny.
Teacher was
who I liked was the other one. The other
JB Smoove.
Oh my gosh!
He goes, as a man of science, I'm
witchcraft.
thinking witches.
My favorite line was, "The wizards are back."
I know. The wizards are back.
The wizards are back.
He was great.
Yeah, he was funny.
I'm going to jump ahead a little here. I never grew up reading Spider-Man comics. I wasn't a comic guy, so I'm very happy. I didn't really know any of the characters that they were focusing on.
Like Mysterio?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was awesome in this movie. I thought he was so good, and I thought he was... And I'm not saying that I'm not a fan of his, but when I saw him in the movie, I'm like, I don't know. We'll see how he does. I thought he did great. And I actually liked him as good Mysterio. Even though you knew he was going to go bad, I thought he could have been a great superhero if that's the direction they took him, because I thought he played it like a superhero. He was great.
Well, I was sitting there thinking, I hope he's not a bad guy, because I like him. I think he's a cool, good guy.
Yeah.
Really, I think his whole backstory and reveal was really well done.
Barf.
Dude, the whole scene, that whole sequence, like, of course, I felt, he's not on the up and up. Like, he's too nice.
Yes.
There's something up with him.
Getting
but
that vibe.
I had no idea that it would play out like it did. Like, he creates this whole stories from a parallel universe.
Well, Jared, to be fair, you called that, because when we saw the first trailer and we talked about the parallel universes, you were the first person I heard say, I think he's lying.
Well,
which he was.
Yeah, but I didn't imagine it would be so, just how everything is revealed in that scene in the bar. Like,
it's almost like Ocean's 11.
Yeah, as soon as he gets the glasses and Peter heads out, he's just like, oh man, that was way too easy.
That was great.
Or whatever.
Well, hold on. And when that scene was unfolding, were you not sitting there going, no, don't do this. Don't do this. No.
Well,
no.
I don't think I was doing that, but I was kind of amazed at how unexpected that was.
I was relieved, even though you don't want him to be a bad guy because you like him as a good guy. I liked the plot shift because I thought battling the elemental creatures was a little thin. And I thought this plot was a much better plot to go to. And I'm glad that's the direction the movie went, because if it had just been about focusing on these elemental creatures in the first half, I thought it would have been not forgettable, but it would have been average. But
Well, I tell you too, I didn't know anything about Mysterio. In fact, when I heard he was the villain, the only reference I had was like pictures of him. And, he looks kind of goofy. He's a goofy looking character. And then you see him in the trailer and he looks exactly like he does in the comic. Mm-hmm. But you have, you trust Marvel. You're like, okay, well, Marvel knows what they're doing. So it wasn't like I was worried. Like when they revealed the holograms and that stuff kicked in with Peter, man, that stuff was amazing. The way they executed the holograms.
When he was trying to just fool Peters with his illusions.
Yes, it was. I mean, that's, to me, I was kind of like warm on the movie until Mysterio was revealed as the villain.
So Quentin Beck is Mysterio, was a former Tony Stark employee who came up with the entire virtual reality holographic projection system that we see Tony using in
Civil War.
Exactly, in Civil War, which then he makes fun of as he takes the glasses off.
He names it Barf.
That is the starting point where Quentin Beck started to have a mental fracture point, and he had an entire plot line in his head about how he's going to get revenge on Tony, and as it played out with the blip and with Tony and most of the Avengers gone, he formed a plan to become a superhero through through an illusion.
Illusions.
Yeah, through illusions. Yeah. And the fact that you see him celebrating in the bar with the random extras from the movies that they brought back to make them important characters.
We know who that one kid was. The bartender was Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
Yeah. The guy with glasses who they show Jeff Bridges yelling at. That's Ralphie.
I mean, that was Ralphie? Was it really?
Yes. He
Ralphie.
was a producer on Iron Man, on the first Iron Man.
I gotta go back and watch it.
He's our age. He is not aged.
You know, the last time
I love they brought him back. I love that they brought him back.
The last time I saw him in a movie was Elf, and he didn't. He didn't look too rough, but
another
I gotta go
Favreau
back
movie.
and look. Yeah, exactly. I gotta go back and look at him now. I gotta watch it. I didn't even pick up on that, but I loved how they brought in the random extras per se that you barely saw, and they made them important characters. It was great.
Yeah. The way he would go, and your costume was so perfect, and
but they're all from like random little tiny scenes in the other movies, which made they were pointless.
But see, even then he was still likable, and it wasn't until he did that dark turn
where he was going to like kill half of London.
Yeah, and he was very dismissive, and he was threatening Ralphie.
Yeah. So I mean, A+ to Jake Gyllenhaal because I liked him. I liked the character. You like him almost to the end.
Mm-hmm. And
he's a great villain. And that's the thing. Marvel has always been kind of criticized for their villains not being super strong, but Mysterio is definitely up
he's
there.
good.
I agree.
I think one of the many laugh out loud minutes for me in the movie was the name of the glasses. Even dead, I'm the hero. That's very much in keeping with what Tony Stark would say.
Well, and the scene where he accidentally sets a drone loose,
the drone
on the kid
to kill Brad.
Oh, it's great.
Would you like me to kill Brad? And he's like, yeah. No, wait, no, yeah.
Can people keep asking him questions and he answers them?
So Peter Parker is recruited or actually tracked down by
Nick Fury
and given the glasses to Edith, which, as we just heard, is the even dead, I'm the hero.
Yes.
And Edith is a orbiting global super weapon, which has thousands of drones of multiple capabilities. And Peter Parker is put in charge of this as a 16-year-old adolescent boy and almost accidentally kills his romantic rival, Brad, which is hilarious.
Which they actually call out how ridiculous that is within the film.
But, his love interest, MJ, who's played by Zendaya, does a great job as MJ. I thought she was great. They took a little different twist on her. She was more of like an introvert and a more of a...
Yeah, in the first movie, she was kind of annoying.
I know. I didn't really like her in Homecoming. I thought she was... I thought she was just...
She was one of those... If you were in school and she was one of those kids in your class, every time she spoke, you'd roll your eyes. You'd be like, God.
Yeah. I liked to see... I guess her, come out of her shell a little bit.
Yeah, she's definitely more likable in this.
Absolutely.
And you know what she did? She played it in a way that you knew she liked Peter.
Yes.
Even though she was sitting with Brad and they were sharing headphones, every time she would look at him, you knew.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
one of those things.
That made it work because Peter was all, insecure about it.
Sure.
And
like
you're thinking,
everybody
no,
can
Peter,
see
you're
it.
fine. You're fine, Peter. You're fine.
Speaking of romances, Ned and Betty
that doofus
was probably the funniest side plot in the whole movie for me.
He just gets off the plane and they're a couple. He's like, what? It's like, that was the words of a boy, Peter. Now I'm a man. Ned is a funny character.
Well, his cameo in Infinity War was fantastic.
Oh, yeah. He's like, we're all going to die.
Okay, I need you to cause a distraction. Oh, no, we're going to die.
And then the whole bus starts flipping out. Yeah, that was great. So I guess based on their ages, all of his friends in the movie blipped.
Yeah, I'd say it's safe to say.
Which
lucky for him.
Yeah. Lucky for Marvel. The whole Beck reveal was great. And it's funny, if you think about it, I mean, what we're seeing in the movie is exactly what the characters on screen are seeing because he's creating that specific illusion.
I'm thinking back to when he was in, was it Prague?
Yeah.
And they're stuck on the Ferris wheel. And
the night monkey. And then
I thought Night Monkey was the funniest name I've ever heard.
she's like, he goes, yeah, that's the
No, that's not Spider-Man. No, that's
the European ripoff.
Night Monkey.
Night Monkey.
And then
And
later
she's like-
when he jumps on the street and the girl looks at him and goes, "Night Monkey," and takes off running.
Or he's
starts
in the
running.
jail in Holland where everyone's so nice, and the guy's on the phone is like, "Good job, Night Monkey." He's wearing his cap. I love Night Monkey. I don't know if Night
I
Monkey
forgot
was
about
ever
the
in
scene
the comics.
where he wakes up in the jail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the super friendly Dutch.
Dude,
Oh, man, that was awesome.
when he got hit by that train, good grief. That was like he comes out of that illusion and immediately gets hit by the train.
I'm going on a limb here, but I bet you Mike flinched. You felt it, didn't you, Mike?
That's a safe. Yeah. I mean,
when he
Wolverine's
hit his-
fists make me flinch.
What about when he hit his head on that bell like twice?
Oh yeah, that was pretty hard. I guess next time I watch a movie, I need to record myself so you can see my.
Yeah,
flinches.
because I would like to see the flinches. I thought, like, going back to the illusions Mike was talking about when he was, like, tripping, and the zombie Iron Man.
Oh man, that was really
great.
unexpected.
That was crazy. That was a good moment.
Yeah.
And
That seems like a lot of pre-programming. Boy, oh boy.
And you know what?
Yeah,
it almost
does.
seemed a bit blasphemous that he took Iron Man and
And,
soiled his image like that.
I
Does
don't
that
know,
make
'cause
sense?
that was his nemesis. That was
No, I
Beck's
know,
nemesis.
but when you watch it, it was like it offended me a little bit. Like, oh, how could he do that to Iron Man? That's disrespectful.
But Quentin Beck at that point really didn't care. He's just trying to mess with Peter.
And the way he threw him, where he acted like he was himself without the thing, and then he got shot, and Fury was behind him, and then it turned out. I mean, it was
almost
so good.
it was almost Inception like some of the
very much,
craziness.
yes,
Just
absolutely.
the numerous layers.
Could you
of
imagine
illusion,
how much time they spent devising
like
those?
storyboarding that stuff? That would have been crazy.
You really did feel like you didn't know what was what. Like when you're in the movie, you're like, I don't know what's going on anymore.
Yeah, you're like, is this real? Because they had that one illusion with all the layers with Nick Fury, and then he was there and he wasn't. And another random moment I enjoyed was that Mr. Strange?
Yeah.
No, Doctor Strange, Doctor. Because if you noticed, Quentin Beck used some of like Doctor Strange animation when he was doing his spells. Like it had,
the rings around his hands.
Yeah, he kept it sort of consistent with what the wizards look like.
Well, apparently in an earlier draft they had written in Doctor Strange apparently, but then that fell out.
Oh, okay.
He was going to have a small cameo in it.
That would have been a lot, I think.
Well, I think, but here's the deal. Like, I think somebody like Doctor Strange would have walked in and said, "Oh yeah, this guy's a fraud."
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. I wonder if they're going to explain where Doctor Strange was at this time in the.
He was
in his
unavailable, or he was unavailable, right? According to Fury.
Yeah,
right. And Thor was off world,
and I wonder why he told Peter not to say Captain Marvel.
Don't invoke her name.
I don't know. Well, we may get to that here as we approach the post-credit scenes. Another line that made me laugh out loud was, "Bitch, you've been to space." when he's just like, "Hey, I'm just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man."
I like the conundrum he was in. I think that was another interesting plot point. Is he just wanted a day off?
Yeah,
exactly. He just wanted to no, I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to do it.
He just wanted to enjoy.
And
himself.
when May packed his suit and they opened it in customs,
she looked at him like, "What? What is this?
You forgot your suit.
You forgot this. Love May." He's just like, okay. Probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he calls Happy to come and get him.
Oh, that is, yeah.
So they have this heart to heart, and he talks about like, I don't know what to do. I'm not as good as Tony. And Happy's like, well, Tony wasn't as good as Tony most of the time.
Right.
And then he's like, well, I need a suit. And Happy's like, all right, and sends him to the back of the plane. And Happy has a moment where he just kind of looks at him like, okay, well, you got it, kid. And then he plays AC/DC.
I have to
say, I love Led Zeppelin.
I did a,
that's what he said.
I did a little fist pump when AC/DC started, I have to say, in the theater.
Yeah.
Like a big goober.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite scenes in the film.
Well, I was laughing at that scene too. He's just like, so what do you want to do? He's like, wow, I got to do this. He said, no, we've been hovering over tulips for 15 minutes. I mean,
yeah.
You know what?
we got to go.
You know what I liked about that scene too, and I was really glad they did it, is he talked about that huge mistake he made of giving those glasses away. Because he was like, this was the one thing he gave me, and I gave it away. And I thought it was important, because that when he did do that, when he hands those glasses off, aside from knowing that it's Mysterio, you're like, no, Tony gave those to you. And for him to acknowledge that in that scene, I mean, that whole scene in the plane is just, it really takes that movie and it makes it like more than a superhero movie.
Well, this is a true maturation story for Peter Parker. This is the one where he's been through a lot. He's now feeling the stress of not just being a superhero, but as a young adolescent man. And, he's trying to put it all together. But I think by the end of this, he's grown through a lot of that himself. And he better have grown a lot, because it looks like he has a lot of pressure coming at him after this movie.
No kidding.
But I think we really saw a change from Peter Parker, the kid in the beginning, to Peter Parker, the young man at the end. In his brief little European trip. Mi scusi.
I love the coded message that Happy sends to Fury. That he found his surfboard.
He found his surfboard.
Don't ever call me again.
Don't ever call me again.
Well, Nick Fury was great in this movie, as always.
But I will say, I told Jared this, I think Samuel Jackson, as odd as it is, as he seems to be frozen in time, is actually starting to show his age a bit.
Yeah, well, I think he just turned 70.
Yeah, he said which showed.
Yeah, I think there should be a graceful exit to Nick Fury at some point. Maybe we'll see something interesting in the next movie.
But but to me, that makes what they did in Captain Marvel all the more amazing. Because
aging him down?
As far as I'm concerned, in that movie, that's young Samuel Jackson.
Well, yeah. Again,
sorry, I'm not trying to get off topic.
Well, with the de-aging stuff, it's
Marvel has it down pat.
Like with Sam Jackson, Kurt Russell, Michael Douglas, we know what they look like.
Yeah,
when they're aging them down.
Yeah.
It's not like we're making a guess. I mean, they've made movies for, 50 years. That's why it's all the more convincing, because it looks like they shot it 30 years ago.
But I did like Fury's line when Mysterio the holograms are falling apart, and he comes up with this really crappy excuse. And
he's pulling you from the Earth's core.
Looks like he goes, that's some BS.
Yeah, that was good.
Because that was a good moment where you see, okay, Fury's caught on. Because you don't like to see your favorite character being snowed for that long.
Sure. The finale in London was well done, was big.
Oh, man, it was unbelievable.
Well, actually, hold on. While you're talking about London, I saw something funny. Tom Holland was having an interview, and he said, the funny thing is like, Spider-Man Homecoming, for me as an actor, took place thousands of miles away from my home. And then Spider-Man Far From Home took place 2 blocks down from where I live, where I grew up. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That is funny. I'd totally forget
he's got a great American accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a good job.
He nails it. And I've seen him on those videos he does where he goes to children's hospitals and stuff and dresses like Spider-Man.
Oh, man, that one with him and Jake Gyllenhaal, however you say his last name. Yeah, that's right. I mispronounced it.
Gyllenhaal.
Jake G.
But he talks like Peter when he's talking to those kids. He doesn't have his natural accent, which it may freak him out. Hey, how you doing? I'm Spider-Man.
Would you like some tea and crumpets?
Yeah, no, I think he's great. But yeah, the end in London was a great sequence.
So, and it was like a scene you kind of didn't want it to end. You're just like, yeah. But the final scene with him and Mysterio was just top notch.
He had to use the Peter tingle to get him through the illusions.
Get the tingle. Get the tingle.
You have the tingle, right? Don't call it that. Stop saying tingle. Stop saying tingle. So I thought that was a good way to bring that back into it. He just closes his eyes and kind of feels his way through all the drones.
And that was a cool way to incorporate that, because they didn't really discuss that at all in the last one.
No. You didn't really see the Peter tingle until Infinity War, when all the hairs on his arm stood up right after the invasion started. So we've made it through the finale. I mean, I think it's obvious by now we all enjoyed the movie.
Hey, I'm cheering for Happy, by the way. I think him and May would make a good couple.
Yeah, but I don't think May thinks that. So,
and I think Marissa Tomei is still a complete hottie. I'm going to say it. I don't care. I'm not ashamed.
No, of course.
She's held up well. She's aged well.
Absolutely. She's very pretty. I thought his first date with MJ was kind of a terrible version of Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder and Superman.
But it was so realistic.
I know.
I love
but
how
like,
terrified
she's
she
like
is.
hanging on to him like, oh, ah! And
You know, I'm watching that scene, and it was fun and playful. But I'm thinking, if this guy's swinging with her around the city like this, how is it not chaos happening down below with cars crashing, trying to look up and watch this guy?
Well,
it would create block
kinda
after
get a
block mayhem if this guy was swinging past your car.
I kind of maybe think they're used to it. Like, oh, look, there goes Spider-Man.
yeah, it could be.
Yeah, maybe.
Spider-Man. But he was gone for 5 years.
That was the least unusual thing that they'd ever seen by that
of course. Those scenes at the end when he's going to meet her and she's saying don't text and swing or whatever. Those scenes of him just going through the city most reminded me of the old Sam Raimi movies. Just seeing him do that at the end of this film, it really reminded me of that, which brings us to what we're going to talk about next. Which
It was a great surprise, too.
Oh, man. Look, I was sitting by myself in the theater, and I clapped. And I don't do that. And the people around me looked at me, and I didn't even care.
All right, so
I was like...
we're getting, it's our mid-credit scene, I'd say.
Yes.
Where Peter gets some very horrible news.
Yes.
Mysterio left him a revenge packet.
Yep.
And the news is brought to you by none other than
Jonah Jameson, played by
J.K. Simmons.
That's right.
When that anchor said Jonah Jameson, I thought, that's like, who are they going to get to play that character? Because J.K. Simmons was him.
Yeah.
And when he popped up, I mean, it was just like, yes.
Like there was no other choice.
That
Yeah.
was great.
And I've since read an interview with the director is like, yeah, we didn't even consider anybody else because there's nobody else to consider.
And
And
he was born to play that role. It was great.
yeah,
I do
and he
miss
said-
the hairdo from the previous movies. The buzz cut.
Yeah, but J.K. Simmons he's a little thin on top these days. But
But I like they modernized him, like he has a web show.
Right.
yeah, and he's
exactly.
like, oh, that's Spider-Man.
He's like Morton Downey Jr.
Yeah,
So
something
obviously at the end, we get Mysterio has revealed to Quentin Beck that he is now blaming Peter Parker for the entire disaster that happened in London, and he calls out his identity to the world, and that's how we end our post-credit scene,
Yeah.
which is great because you think that Peter is everything is happy with Peter in the world. He's got his vacation. He seems like he's rested. He's got his girlfriend. He's happy. Everyone loves him. Everyone's happy to see him land on the mailbox and just wave at him, and then that news hits.
Yeah, so where that leaves things...
That's the Empire Strikes Back of the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, what happens now? It's sort of like the reverse of what Tony Stark did in Iron Man 1. He made the choice to tell everybody who he was. And Peter is like, that's the last thing he wants. And then all of a sudden he's standing there in Times Square and, okay.
Well, and then if you sat through the credits like you should in a good Marvel movie, you got one of the best moments in the movie, in my opinion.
Are you talking about
when Nick Fury
when he turned
shifted
into Ben
into
Mendelsohn?
Talos?
The Skrulls.
That dialogue is priceless. In fact, take a listen.
It was fine. The little boy handled it. We helped.
Talos.
Come off it. How was I supposed to know that the whole thing was fake? I mean, that was all very, very convincing. The performances, the illusion, that costume, the craftsmanship and that. I mean, this is just embarrassing for a shapeshifter. Fine. Hey, I hope your mission is going well. We gave the glasses to Parker about a week ago, like you said. And that's very touching, really, really quite touching.
Talos.
Shortly after that, it really kind of went off the rails, and so we need you to come back, because everyone kept asking me where the Avengers are, and I don't know what to say to that, so you're lucky that's why I'm at.
Then we jump forward to see Nick Fury in
He's
space.
chilling on a space station.
I wonder how long he's been there.
See, that's what some people are wondering.
Well,
Like,
there's theories that he's been there since right after Age of Ultron, and then there's theories that he just went up there. So
It seems like it
like-
needs to be he just went up there.
like maybe he started the movie and then he got Ben Mendelsohn to come and take his place at some point.
I don't know, but it kind of makes sense that Mysterio could fool him.
Yeah, because-
then
Exactly.
Yeah, if that had been
Because-
the real Nick Fury, he would have saw through that in a flat second. But there's a theory that I guess Joss Whedon created in the Marvel Universe in, I guess, a comic story, Sword, which is I don't know what it stands for, but it's basically like S.H.I.E.L.D., only it's combating extraterrestrial.
Space.
Right,
Yeah.
and that this is a theory that he might be part of Sword now up there, but who knows?
Well,
also it looks like what they're doing is maybe they're making Captain Marvel a little more palatable.
I mean, I didn't hate Captain Marvel.
I didn't hate it either. I mean, I really did.
I thought it was pretty fun.
But,
but I tell you, Talos, Ben Mendelsohn stole that movie.
Oh, that.
Well, he didn't have much to steal it from.
Well, I really liked it, and I thought it was awesome that he came back and did this little scene.
Yes, I did too.
Because, in Captain Marvel, they're asking him if he can change into a filing cabinet, and he's like, why would I change into a filing cabinet? that stuff was great. But
I need to rewatch it. I think it's a movie I could warm up to. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I felt like Brie Larson was a little flat. But other than that, I think I could warm up to it.
We get really cosmic at the end of that film, but I want to know what happens to Peter now. I don't know when the next Spider-Man movie is coming out, and I don't know that the movies they're making, which are going to be, sounds like a bunch of prequels here for the next few years, they're not going to be addressing that. So
who knows? I mean, we might get lucky and we might get something like a Professor Hulk movie that comes out that deals with the Peter Parker problem in the same movie. They might not do it in a straight Spider-Man movie.
Oh, yeah. I think they would. This is definitely a storyline that needs to be. Even the director has said that, like, that's what they're going to be addressing, and he said he has to do some research, so even he doesn't know for sure.
Well, where they leave it, it is a seismic change in that series of movies.
It's a bit Dark Knight-ish.
Yeah.
So
I'm really curious to see where they end up. This was a streak for Marvel. They are 23 for 23 in number one openings.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were
for opening at number one. I thought that was interesting. I read that too. But I guess it makes sense because every Marvel film that's opened since Iron Man has opened at number one.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I guess
so
that makes sense, though.
A perfect streak.
It's a perfect summer movie. It's fun. It's
good.
Big. It makes you laugh, and it's just a great story. It's really a fun movie to watch.
Yeah. So hey, this is the Hyperspace first movie review.
Tell us what you think. Should we not do these again? Should we do more?
Yes, please let us know. But we'll probably do more anyway.
Go out and see the movie. You'll enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it,
then you got a lot of problems.
Yeah, you got something wrong with you. Something in your upbringing, I'm guessing.
Probably so.
Thanks for listening, everybody, to episode 4. We want to thank all of you pioneers who are coming along with us on this interweb's first podcast journey. I know it's a bumpy ride, but we'll keep the seatbelts fastened, and we'll get through this together.
That's a beautiful speech, Matt, and I agree with everything you said. So join us here next week as we bring you another episode from the 25th century.
So why are you guys still here? I mean, there's not a bonus scene after the credits. I mean, we're not going to turn into scrolls or anything. So, stop. Just stop it. Just stop. You can stop right now. Stop. Stop it. Stop.
You know you can't live without this content. So subscribe to the Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.